Hello, hardcore financial listeners. Today I'm here in Washington, D.C. with the beautiful Capitol behind me. Let's see if we can get the Capitol on film here. There it is. To try to see if I can go learn more about what Congress people are really thinking about both FTX, about crypto, how they're thinking about crypto, what needs do they want, what educational opportunities do they want, and see if there's a move towards pushing positive, good, sensible regulation forward. I think we'll try to tailor the show towards the regulatory side. 2023 seems to be like the year of regulation, and the year of when we're going to see a lot of regulation in the blockchain and crypto world, and we will bring the latest and greatest to you even before it hits hopefully the bills. If you want to find out what's coming and what's hot, please stay tuned to us. So I'm going to go in, try to talk to some people and learn as a private citizen, and I'll get back to you. So let's talk about the day here. Still on the hill. So a little touch of detail of what I talked about before. So pretty positive, actually. Pretty positive on the day. Look, stablecoin bills have to come. A lot of the stablecoin bills that people are talking about is putting who issues stablecoins. That's one. Second one is what kind of stablecoins. Are we talking about bank issued stablecoin, or are we talking about an algorithmic stablecoin? Those are big debates right now that are going on. Obviously, people are much more aligned with kind of bank or central party issued stablecoins, not algorithmic. There's still an overhang from Luna, Terra, to understand, well, can Luna happen again? Algo stablecoins even possible? And some people are saying, people are just skeptical of it. One opinion is, hey, you can go read the white papers, and technically if you read the white papers for Luna, you were able to discover that Luna could have had this death spiral that they had. On the other hand, who is technical enough, even us that are pretty technical in the industry, who is technical enough to be able to read the Luna, Terra Luna white paper and actually see that it's going to go down in this death spiral? Very, very few people. So it's not practical from a consumer perspective. In general, Democrats are all about consumer protection and banking the unbanked in the U.S. And Republicans are more about letting innovation thrive without over-regulating it, being able to have the U.S. be kind of that center of innovation that it always has been. And so those are the lines that are drawn. Some Republicans are saying, well, why does the industry even want regulation? Lots of discussions about the SEC versus the CFTC. Who is the actual regulator of crypto? What's a security and what's a commodity? Seems to be consensus that Bitcoin is a commodity. It's probably consensus that Ethereum is a commodity as well. As for everything else, there are these massive turf wars between the regulators. So look, pretty encouraging. Again, as I mentioned, the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF, is a big deal. So people are talking about the Bitcoin ETF, which is encouraging. Doesn't mean it's timely, by the way. Encouraging doesn't mean timely. Stable coins, and then people start talking about custody. So who gets the custody assets? You have to have separate wallets for custody. These are all coins that are, for example, in the Loomis Gillibrand bills, and actually in some of the other bills. The little piece of alpha, I guess I can say, is that in general, it seems that crypto legislation, relatively positive, or maybe not even positive, sensible legislation is actually higher on a docket than I originally thought. It seems like post FTX, many people are horrified and want to ban this whole thing. But most people understand that crypto is here to stay, and you cannot ban Web3, you cannot ban digital assets, you cannot ban crypto, and that it's better for the U.S. to create groundwork, regulatory framework around this thing, rather than just start making it into this evil monster, which it's not. I think the other theme is a lot of stories are coming out. There's been some organizations that I've encountered. I've actually talked to a few people that worked with President Zelensky to have Ukraine there was a very powerful story that in the beginning of the war, the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine, a lot of Ukrainians were locked out of the banking system, citizens, and even the government, because a lot of the European banking systems in Ukraine were thought of Ukrainians and even the Ukrainian government as high risk. They didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know how to assess that situation. And without Bitcoin and Tether, in this case, they used a lot of Tether for stablecoins. In the first days of the war, they weren't able to actually use dollars. They weren't able to go into the banking system and use dollars. So without Bitcoin and Tether, they weren't able to supply the army with shields, with flank jackets, with equipment that they needed desperately to repel the Russian attacks. And I met some of these people. I met them a few months ago, actually, at a digital the policy breakfast in DC. They came from Ukraine. They operate in Ukraine and Switzerland. They told the story, and there's a lot of appetite, both in trade organizations as well as on the Hill, to hear these stories, to hear stories of how real people are using crypto for good, are using crypto to save lives. And and then it's not the speculative investment that everyone's talking about, how it's a speculative shit show, that it's shit coins that are flying up and down, and just post-COVID kind of crypto bros that are going on and trading like GameStop, that it's actually something real. It's very, very encouraging for me to hear. It's very encouraging for me to hear as a Ukrainian. It's very encouraging for me to hear as a citizen. And it's very encouraging for me to hear as a former refugee who's had to go through some of this and had to actually experience capital controls. I actually, when I talk to people about crypto in general, both in private and in the house, I talk to them about my story, about how I escaped the Soviet Union, about how my grandfather put silver rubles in my pant pocket, and I went through the metal detectors, which obviously went off, but I was a child, and this was 1991, so nobody's going to stop a kid going through a metal detector. And that's how we were able to get money and wealth out. This is a real story that's actually happened to me, and this story is very powerful. I'm thankful to many people sharing my story, because in the US we don't see this. We don't experience this. This doesn't happen to us very, very often. In fact, ever. But it does happen across the world. And when you start talking about stories like this, and you start telling people, hey, refugees are using this to save lives. People are, I know the Stellar organization is working with the UN right now to help Ukrainian refugees use USDC and Stellar to take it out of the country. And so when they're faced with stories like this, I think it becomes a very, very powerful message that crypto isn't just some money laundering, speculative bubble, used for terrorist scheme. Everyday people who are fighting for freedom, which are core pillars of this country, by the way, are actually using cryptocurrencies. It makes me very, very, very encouraged in this space. No sense of timing yet. Everything moves very, very slowly in Congress. In crypto we live and die by the week, by the day sometimes. In the US Congress, when you're moving a country, this behemoth, this state that it's been the shining city on the hill, as Ronald Reagan says. And it's been the pillar of light for the world in many ways, for many centuries. Things move slow. So, will the US come through and be a crypto-friendly country? I absolutely think so. Will it take a few years? Absolutely. There'll be turf wars. There'll be the elections coming up in 2 years. There's going to be debates about the different bills, who's regulating what paperwork is needed. We're going to come through. I'm actually very, very bullish. The more I talk to my representatives, my original home is in Illinois. My current home is in the DC area. I'll just say it that way. So wherever you are, wherever you live, talk to your representatives. It's super important. Call them. Call their offices. Stop by their local offices. Stop by their DC offices. They can take you. It's the people's house. The House of Representatives is the people's house. And it's very important for them to hear your voice, to hear your stories, and to understand why you're in it. To understand why Bitcoin is going to change the world and is already changing the world. I think I'm going to go back in, have some more conversations, sign off for now, sign back on with Shimon, and maybe I'll debrief him and hear his opinion about the day. Till the next segment of the episode. This one is a little disjointed, but I hope you actually enjoy this, because what we want to do is bring you real alpha, real underground news, and as policy and progress happens, we'll post about it. I'll post about it. We're gonna make 2023 and the Hardcore Finance show, the crypto angle, at least about policy, because policy is going to make or break a lot of this market. And I think it's important to know, if you're investing, to at least understand what's coming down the pike and what our regulators and legislators are thinking about this. So far, very encouraged, and actually it's making me more bullish, much more bullish on the industry than I was, and I was a mega bull. And you know that Shimon and I are huge mega bulls, but I'm very encouraged with what I'm seeing so far. So until the next segment of this, me and Shimon just doing a little bit of a debrief. We are now back, and I'm sitting now with Shimon after my day on Capitol Hill. And basically, I'll kind of recap for Shimon. This is the first time he's hearing about it, even though the first part of the video was filmed earlier. And I talked a little bit about regulation and visiting as a private citizen, visiting my state representatives, and visiting some just around the House, because we're in DC, to just understand the climate around crypto policy. And it's actually fairly favorable, especially there's still bipartisan heft behind it, if you will. And it's still fairly, I was fairly encouraged by the conversations. I think people understood that FTX happened, it was very bad. And some people are saying, look, it's, crypto this is what we talked about, we warned you about this. Many, though, are saying, hey, this is fraud. And it could have happened anywhere. But we need to move regulation forward, and actually think regulation in this space, sensible regulation, could be a good thing. Private citizen Alex here talking. So I was pretty encouraged.
Awesome. So I would love to hear more. First of all, for our viewers and listeners, we're recording this. What's the date today? January 21st? 29th, sorry. And
29th.
Where we go. And basically the price of Bitcoin is back to where it was before FTX collapsed, which I think is pretty amazing. So what would you say were the impressions you got from talking to all the government folks? And especially I want to know, did something surprise you, or was it pretty much what you expected?
Yeah, look, I think I was, on the price comment, I'm happy about this recent bullish action. It could still crash, right? There's the session is going to come in sometime in Q2, Q3, so it could still crash. Although I'm hoping it's getting decoupled from the stock market. So I'm cautiously optimistic. It seems like
I just want to say, in 2019, when the depths of the bear market were like $3,000, when we climbed up to 6K, which was the previous level, it was a big deal. We were able to climb.
But it still crashed back again in COVID. It went back to 3,000.
That's true. I'm not saying it can't crash again, but I think it's very important that, there wasn't crazy contagion, because they didn't know, because first 3 arrows fell, and then other firms started falling, and then FTX fell, and people are like, oh my God, all these venture investments that FTX invested in won't be able to raise another round. So there was a big worry about contagion.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I mentioned the price. But I totally take your point. Nothing is guaranteed.
And look, FTX actually didn't have any Bitcoin. So for a Bitcoin price, they didn't have to liquidate anything. But it seems like now with Genesis filing for bankruptcy, I think the contagion is done. This is, hopefully, some smaller players can come out, but the bigger players are done. Look, regarding regulation, we all know that regulation is going to come. Right? This is a theme that we'll try to keep our listeners abreast of, but and in fairly real time as we hear about it. But pretty productive conversations, as I said. And I'll say it this way, for me, the two slam dunk issues that I would like to see, right? Again, private citizen Alex. Nothing to do with any of my kind of professional responsibilities. Private citizen Alex would like to see stablecoin regulation. Seems to be, to me, that's fairly kind of obvious, at least to say, hey, if you're going to issue stablecoins, have them backed up by treasuries or some liquid assets. Kind of obvious. And I don't think anyone would actually argue against this. And to be audited periodically, call it once a month, to show that you have what you have, and it's backed up by liquid assets. Okay.
That doesn't touch algorithmic stablecoins. I won't get into that because that's a separate, interesting topic of the space. But
in my point of view, it's completely unfeasible to do an algorithmic stablecoin.
Okay.
But yeah, the reason why the government should be excited about stablecoins is about most of the dollars are actually held outside of the US, like the physical bills. And I think 50% of the dollars, just overall, both physical and digital, are held outside of the US. So it's a way for the US to circumvent, currency controls or any type of capital controls to export dollars to the rest of the world, which is something that the US government should want to do.
Yeah, it's a great way to export dollars. And you have Circle, you have others. Let's say you call it a bank wants to issue a stable coin, and a bank, they're already regulated, highly regulated by many entities in the US. And so they can show the reserves that they have. So again, without touching algorithmic stable coins, it's a whole separate topic, whether you believe in it or not. At least, centrally issued stable coins, pass the bill, get it over with. Let's stable coins prosper. That's one. I think the second one is the Bitcoin ETF. That for me is very, very important because a lot of the collapse that's happened in our space actually was because there is no Bitcoin ETF. There was people that can't buy Bitcoin outright. Institutions went into Grayscale, GBTC, and it had a premium. Since the crash and the price started going down, has a discount, and then it's this unwinding of hidden leverage because of this GBTC premium arbitrage trade. For those of you who don't know what it is, please send us comments so we can do a deep dive on that. But basically, people are buying the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, unlocking their Bitcoin 6 months later, and the shares were higher. Essentially, they were unlocking the ability to sell the shares. They got 20% premium. That when that went to a discount, you couldn't do that anymore, and so there was the leverage in the whole space fell. That's what brought down Genesis ultimately, and Three Arrows Capital. These guys are playing this arbitrage. So a spot ETF, I think, would have been a way to actually protect consumers, not protect consumers, and basically Gary Gensler's ultimate reason for not approving the ETF is he's saying, hey, the Bitcoin market is not regulated, so I cannot approve a spot ETF for an unregulated product. But it's a false kind of there are other unregulated type of products that have spot ETFs approved, and the only reason why Bitcoin isn't regulated is because there's this turf war between the CFTC and the SEC about who, it's security or not a commodity, even though everyone agrees that Bitcoin is a commodity. So it's a circular argument at best for me. But those two things are very important. What about for you? What would you like to see from a regulatory perspective to get cleared up?
I would say all of these are good. The number one thing, I'm with Michael Saylor here, which is to change the accounting rules for holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet, which currently it just creates a mess for no reason. So the current rules are, if the price, let's say I buy Bitcoin at 20,000, then it goes down to 15,000 and it goes back up to 20,000. I have to, two really bad things. I have to report the loss even though it recovered. And the second thing is it's reported as an operating loss, which is crazy. So it's as if I lost all this money by hiring employees that were unproductive or whatever. So I think that
you can't record the gain.
You cannot record the gain, yeah. And so it's really, really bad. You can reconcile it like a year later or something, but it's just like it's really bad.
Mark to market, yeah.
Exactly. And so that's by far, I think, the biggest thing, because stable coins, it's a good on-ramp to Bitcoin, but it's not like the most important thing, but I think it's the lowest hanging fruit. So I think the FASB regulation would be really hard to change. Stable coins, no brainer. So I would love to get the low hanging fruit out of the way. And I would also love for people to have an opinion on what is a security and what is a commodity in the digital space. Now, I'm not very optimistic that it will happen because it's a really, really tough problem to solve. But I think once that happens, the floodgates will open because people will have confidence that they're investing in something that's not controlled by anyone. The whole point of a commodity, I've been diving a lot in this topic because of another topic that I'm exploring in writing a book. It's basically, it's all about the fungibility, right? So for example, if you look at something like Russia, they were not able to develop any industry because they're just like really bad at creating incentives for people to work hard, but they can sell commodities because commodities are fungible. You don't care if you buy your natural gas, like the molecule of natural gas, if it comes from Russia or if it comes from Canada. So Bitcoin is the same, right? It's like nobody can control it, and you don't care if your Bitcoin came from company A or company B. Now, if you look at other things, for example, Ethereum, there's a group of people that can change monetary policy. They can change like a bunch of things about the protocol. So you could make a case that it's more like a security, but it's going to take a long time, I think, to resolve.
Well, here probably, I don't believe that there'll ever be a case that Ethereum is a security. Because
not Ethereum. Yeah. Think about the other 20.
Yeah, exactly. There are many that have to do with the centralized. There are many tokens in the space that are acting as securities because there are ways to get money to the original teams. I mean, Ethereum is a hard one now. It's very decentralized. It's not used as a security. There's a group of developers, just as a group of Bitcoin developers that change Bitcoin, right? Whether you want to say some have oversized influence or not, Vitalik, anyway. But I agree. I think secure. So you talked about security versus commodity accounting rules. Actually, there was a letter, I believe, sent Friday or Thursday, the 28th, the 20, something like that. I believe it was from Congress, so Warren. And actually Wyden, so Elizabeth Warren is very against crypto and digital assets. Wyden is for. Sent to the PCAOB, which is a public certified accounting oversight board, that said you have to double down on looking at how to account for crypto. Theirs was oversight and audit of companies that hold crypto. But any, I think, accounting looks into crypto would help because you said there is an accounting hole. And right now it's very hard for companies, public companies, to hold these assets. The volatility is so high that you always have to keep on having these markdowns. So 4 things: accounting, we talked about, security versus commodity, stable coins is an overlap, and Bitcoin ETF. I think, and look, it's going to take a while to get, then there's a change in what it means to be a node operator for Bitcoin, because remember the old infrastructure bill defined everyone. If you're running a node, it defines them as broker-dealers. Yes, so but
definition passed.
That did pass,
wow.
but everyone, Treasury and IRS and everybody's saying, hold on, that's not what we actually meant. So they're not enforcing that part, but McHenry, which is the House Whip, and others are trying to get that. They're trying to get it amended so that definition doesn't have node operators.
So stupid in my opinion, because what does it mean to run a node? What if I have a computer in Germany that runs a node for me, and I just VPN into it and give it commands?
Yeah.
Am I running a node?
Yes.
No. How do you?
No. The point is sure, but the point is that node
running software. I don't think you can regulate. You cannot regulate running software. You can regulate, what you send. But for example, BitTorrent, right? It's not illegal. Downloading a Disney movie on BitTorrent is illegal, but Facebook uses BitTorrent to share really large data files between its employees. So you cannot say running this piece of software is illegal.
They're not saying running nodes are illegal. What they're saying is node operators have to report transactions.
Yes, so running it and not reporting it is illegal.
Exactly, it's illegal.
I don't think that it's enforceable.
It's not enforceable.
Because again, the identity of whoever runs it, the whole point of KYC and AML, for example, is that if I start receiving and sending money and not reporting it to the government and not identifying the people, the only reason the government knows that I'm doing is because I deal with money. I have to deposit it in the bank something. I can hide it in my house. Then the police can say, where did you get this money from? Software? How do they even prove I have access to the computer that's running the node? What if I set it up, forget it, never access it, but I'm the one who set it up?
Yeah. Listen, I think you're right. So that's why, and everyone recognizes it. And the stupid thing, I think, is that they passed something that was flawed, but they passed it because it was thrown in at the last minute, part of a bigger thing, the infrastructure bill, and then now they're unwinding it. So it's taking more cycles of Congress to unwind something that they shouldn't have done in the first place. So yes, but they are working on that. So there's a definition of a broker-dealer for nodes. There is the ETF. There is security versus commodity. There is accounting rules. And then there are stable coins. And I think once we start there, right, and those are pretty big pieces, then we have to talk about custody, who custodies coins, proof of reserves or proof of liabilities for exchanges, the OCC, which is the Office of Control of the Currency, and FDIC looking at banks for giving them the ability to custody coins. And how much of their reserves can they actually put into holding Bitcoin and others. So there's a lot to tackle. We're not even talking about things like Tornado Cash, right? If you can put a piece of software, which they did on the OFAC list, which is anti-terrorism. So those are a PhD level regulatory issues they need to clear up. We're at like stable coins should be backed up by treasuries, which pretty much everyone in the industry I think agrees with. We're at that level, but I think there's actually finally momentum. Like the Congress for the first time established the Digital Assets Subcommittee. So there's finally momentum now to actually get something done.
Established by the Republicans that just won the election?
Republicans, yeah.
Or was it before the election?
Just the new Congress. Will be the first
so that's what I wanted to ask you. What do you see as the biggest opportunities coming from the results of the recent elections for the House?
Look,
in terms of crypto.
Yeah. I'll kind of say it, and then as these things come up, we should do more episodes to update the folks. But I think the opportunities are. I hope this remains a bipartisan issue, even though Republicans are a little bit more pro it now. It seems because the Democrats were SBF'd. They were SBF'd hard by the overt donations he was giving them. I think that this has to stay a bipartisan issue because that's the only way that these things start getting passed. If it becomes political and Republicans win, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, maybe thinking get done something quicker, but then crypto is not going to be on the top of their list or other things that they should get done. If it remains a bipartisan issue and it just passes with enough moderate votes, especially the Senate is where it's going to be a little harder. So my hope is that it remains bipartisan. My hope that when the ground thaws out and this SBF cloud overhang leaves, we'll be able to pass it. But we'll keep you guys updated. We'll always be the first ones to make you the.
Can we talk about one more? I had one more question for you. Are you seeing any difference in the ESG narrative changing because of the recent developments in the war in Ukraine, or not so much?
Nah, it's still
strong.
It's still I've heard go to the CEO of Bitcoin, or not so many terms, but go talk to the Bitcoin guys and make it more energy efficient.
Yeah, no, that was Chris Larson. I just don't understand if the guy is stupid in how he's trying to convince people, or is he just stupid?
Well,
because he was like, change the code. It's like, okay, but who will change the code? It's like saying change the code of the Apache servers that serve all of the web. It's like, yeah, good luck changing all of the code for all of the web. Like, it's not going to
actually don't know Chris Larson. I've heard it from other people.
So he is he was involved in Ripple, and then he gave this huge donation to Greenpeace. He really cares about global warming. And look, I really care about global warming. I just happen to think that mining Bitcoin is the solution to global warming.
I do too.
And we can make an episode on that. It's nice that we're talking about more political stuff because of your new
private citizen
engagement, private citizen, Alex. But no, seriously, I really think that slowly it will change, even if we're not seeing it in the Congress here, because here, we're very energy rich. So we have the privilege of meddling with these things. But I think in Europe, the ESG narrative is definitely dying out, which hopefully can help.
I agree. I think it will change over time, and there's definitely momentum because of the Russia-Ukraine war to see, hey, ESG wasn't built, wasn't all that it was built up to be, so to speak.
All you need to know about ESG is that Chevron or Exxon were way, way, way on top of the list, and Tesla was way, way, way on the bottom of the list, and that tells you everything about ESG. It's basically, from what I understand, it's mostly a racket for consultants that can certify you that you are like ESG, and also like a way to divert capital. Like Larry Fink is huge into that, and the idea is like, look, if investing in ESG is more profitable, you don't need to mandate it. And if investing in ESG is less profitable, then you shouldn't mandate it because it's less profitable. So that's my case.
Well, on that note, I'll keep you updated the more I hear. Let's talk about ESG next time, globally, and what it has to do for Bitcoin. But globally, it'll be interesting to dissect geopolitics of the world and kind of predict what's going to happen to ESG. It's the environment, sustainability, and I don't know what G stands for, but it's
governance.
And governance. So it's not just being environmentally friendly. It's also diversity, inclusion, and all this other stuff. Good ideas implemented, I think, very poorly, or we got perverted over time.
Well, thank you, Alex. This was super interesting. Guys, please let us know if you want to hear more finance content, more hardcore, crypto, Bitcoin, and OG content, or political content, and we will create content according to what you tell us that interests you.
Thank you. Talk soon.